Deku's new shocking power just changed the whole game yet again as the final battle gears up for an epic conclusion. The heroes are using Warp Gate to fight back against the newly revived All For One, but is it already too late? Is the One For All quirk already broken beyond repair? Let's get into it. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy my MHA videos, you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment for that YouTube algorithm. And if you watch this channel but you haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a huge favor and subscribe right now. It is completely free and it helps me out a lot. Okay, in the last chapter we saw Shigaraki's body disintegrating into nothingness inside of his consciousness. At the same time, the vestige of All For One seemed to regain control of Shigaraki's body. In that chapter, we also learned that All For One has been manipulating the Shimura family since before Tenko was even born, and in fact, he was the one who encouraged Tenko's father to have a second child in the first place. All For One secretly stole Tenko's real quirk when he was just a baby. He encouraged Tenko's father's harsh behavior towards his son, and then at a carefully calculated moment, All For One transferred Decay onto Tenko without the boy's knowledge. Decay is actually an altered version of the quirk Overhaul. Dr. Ujiko stripped away the reconstruction aspect of that quirk and created a new quirk that spreads only destruction. Then that artificially generated quirk was given to Tenko, who ended up activating it accidentally and killing his entire family, which is exactly what Ujiko and All For One wanted. Deku and Shigaraki's bodies were then returned to the real world from that mental memory world that they were interacting in. Shigaraki's entire psyche was seemingly destroyed, although All For One did acknowledge that there were still some lingering notes of Shigaraki in there, so maybe he's not totally gone. On top of that, All For One says that his perfect vessel has been ruined because this body has sustained serious damage as a result of the spiritual and mental breakdown that Shigaraki/Tenko just experienced. Oh, and All For One also mentioned that Yoichi is now gone for some reason, and that the quirk All For One is apparently ruined, although we're not yet sure what he meant by this. We also saw that upon returning to the physical world, Deku returned with both of his arms severed at the forearms. The damage he sustained from the effects of decay within the memory world actually carried over to the physical world. But that wasn't even the final twist of the previous chapter. Just when it seemed that Deku was now helpless against the newly revived All For One, a Warp Gate portal opened and a bunch of Deku's allies arrived and attacked All For One, including Sero, Ojiro Sato, and eventually our boy Aizawa. The latest chapter starts off with a quick flashback that explains what exactly happened to Aizawa, Present Mic, and Kurogiri after Kurogiri saved the other two from falling to their deaths back in chapter 380. As we assumed, Kurogiri did indeed teleport them to safety, and they ended up on some tiny remote island in the ocean. We see Present Mic trying desperately to get their friend Oboro Shirakumo to awaken once again within the Nomu Kurogiri. A teary-eyed Present Mic looks like he's about to punch Kurogiri in the face in order to force him to wake up. But in reality, it seems that Present Mic really wants to punch himself because he clearly feels extremely guilty about what happened to Oboro. He feels terrible about Oboro's corpse being taken and violated by Ujiko and All For One, and since the heroes didn't know that it happened, they failed to stop it. Aizawa's like, "You're crying," and Present Mic says, No, I'm not crying because I'm a man. But Aizawa says, "No, I'm actually talking about Kurogiri." The Nomu looks like he is crying, and Mike doesn't believe it because Nomu are not supposed to cry, but something clearly is happening with Kurogiri. I mean, he did just save these guys' lives after all, and that is definitely not part of this Nomu's programming. The master of Kurogiri, All For One, would not have approved of this at all. This was clearly Oboro's decision. Aizawa believes that they did manage to get through to Oboro, at least to an extent. They managed to create a spark of light within the darkness, and even though he will never be 100% back to being Oboro again, he is not 100% dark either. He is not just a Nomu anymore. He is a Nomu, but he is also Oboro. And since Oboro died tragically while he was still a student, and since Mike and Aizawa are now UA teachers, it is their job to guide the student Oboro to his graduation. Not gonna lie, this is actually pretty deep and symbolic when you think about it, and I'm glad that Mike and Aizawa are about to actually get a chance to make things right with their friend after all these years of regrets and sadness. We then see Kurogiri looking at Mike and calling out his real name, Yamada. And then the chapter shifts to Aizawa suddenly arriving in the control room where Tsukauchi and La Brava are located. Aizawa asks Tsukauchi if Monoma is still able to fight, because obviously Monoma's ability to cancel out All For One's quirks by copying Aizawa's quirk would be extremely useful. Unfortunately, Monoma has been knocked unconscious, so he is not able to continue the fight. Aizawa then goes on to ask how many other heroes and hero students are still able to fight, because now that they have access to Warp Gate, they are able to transport all the heroes to the main battlefield in order to help Deku. After that, we see Aizawa entering the underground refugee shelter. He speaks to Ectoplasm about using Warp Gate to transport as many heroes as possible, as quickly as possible, to the battlefield. We see the formerly retired Death Arms volunteering, as well as Astro, who is actually a character from Horikoshi's old manga, Barrage. Honestly, it's freaking awesome that Horikoshi just randomly inserted a character from his old manga here into the story, so I absolutely love that. We then witness a small but symbolic and important moment in which that civilian who initially didn't want to let Deku return to UA takes off his shirt and offers it up to the heroes as a makeshift bandage in case they need to use it to wrap someone's wounds on the battlefield. A few other civilians do the same, and Aizawa thanks them for it. Clearly, Deku and the heroes have succeeded in winning over even some of their biggest skeptics, so now more and more people are uniting behind the cause of defeating All For One. Tsukauchi tells Aizawa that the Takoba battle still isn't over yet, and for those who need a reminder, that's the battle against a mysterious villain called Gashly. We've gotten a few very quick peeks at this fight, but we never got to see much of it. We just know that Gashly is clearly a powerful villain and he has an OP quirk, and even though a bunch of heroes are trying to fight him at the same time, they still can't win. The heroes who were fighting Gashly include Space Hero 13, Sato, and Sero, among others. But things are not going well, at least at this point in time. So Ectoplasm and a bunch of other heroes, including Class 1B students like Setsuna and Scyther from Pokemon, arrive at the scene using Warp Gate, and Gashly is then finally brought down. As I said in my previous video, Warp Gate is truly a game changer, and back in the present moment, we see a whole bunch of portals showing up all around the battlefield as more heroes arrive and back Deku up. Aizawa, who is already right next to Deku, asks how long it's been since Deku lost his arms. Deku doesn't actually know, since it all happened in Shigaraki's memory world, so it's hard to tell how much time actually passed. Deku also says that he no longer feels Shigaraki fighting back against All For One, so All For One seems to be in complete control of the vessel. Oh, by the way, remember how I said in my last video that Warp Gate means that Eri and her quirk might be back in play? Well, Eri herself did not come to the battlefield, but back when Aizawa was still at the shelter, Eri approached him and gave him her horn. Ectoplasm had helped her cut it off earlier, and she decided to give it to Aizawa so that he could try and use it to help Deku. Aizawa is worried that cutting off her horn by force could damage Eri's quirk, but she says that she has to help. She wanted to help All Might and Bakugo rewind the damage they sustained, but she wasn't able to because she wasn't on the battlefield. So now that the heroes have Warp Gate at their disposal, she wants Aizawa to at least try to use her horn to help Deku heal his arms. Eri also says that her dream is to one day sing like Jiro did back at the UA school festival, and she wants Deku and all the other students to hear her sing and to have fun together when the war finally ends. According to Ectoplasm, the horn will allow Deku to heal, but it will take a while, about 2 or 3 minutes, because Eri's horn wasn't at full strength when she cut it off. Now, 2 or 3 minutes may sound like a short amount of time, but in an ongoing battle to the death against the final villain, this is actually a long time. Back in the present on the battlefield, Aizawa says that Deku can't die until he hears Eri singing like Jiro, and he then proceeds to pierce Deku's back with Eri's horn. In that moment, Deku's lost arms slowly begin to regenerate as Rewind begins to take effect. While this is happening, and as Deku's arms are healing, more hero students rush in through the portals, including Mineta, Kaminari, Momo, Koda, and Shoji. I will say that Mineta looks like an absolute Chad at this point. He has definitely gone through his Chad formation, he's been through a lot, and he's seen some things. Honestly, I never thought I'd see Mineta looking this fierce. Just like Mineta, all the heroes and hero students are already exhausted from their own battles, but after seeing how hard Deku is working and how much he is sacrificing, they all decided to give it their all, to defy the limitations of their bodies, and to fight one final battle together. As I said in the last video, this is not just the story of how Deku became the greatest hero. We know that this is now the story of how they all became the greatest heroes, so this final battle was always going to be a team effort, for better or worse. Now, I'm already seeing a lot of controversy about Deku being able to heal his arms so quickly and easily after losing them in the last chapter. Some people think this whole thing was a pointless fake out because it was taken back so quickly, but let me know if you guys agree down in the comments. I know that people on Twitter will always find something to complain about, but there could be a legitimate point here. One thing that I'm wondering about right now, other than what was Shigaraki's original quirk, is whether using Rewind on Deku in this way is going to just heal his arms, or is it going to have some other effects on him as well? We know that Aries Rewind is not an exact science, so Deku could easily be rewinded well past the point where he lost his arms. Earlier on, we saw All For One claiming that Yuichi is gone and that All For One is broken, but could Deku be rewinded to the point before that happened? Could Rewind repair not only Deku's arms, but also his quirk? Could Rewind somehow mix with Deku's current quirk powers in order to create a brand new quirk? Maybe a quirk singularity that forces all of One For All quirks to blend together into some sort of super quirk. Don't forget to let me know what you guys think will happen next down below. Is Deku about to unlock a new quirk power? Is All For One about to be defeated? Or is he gonna defy all expectations yet again? Is any important hero or hero student going to die during this battle? Let me know down below. If you're looking for another epic MHA video to watch right now, check out my video about the top 13 strongest quirk gods in MHA. Link on screen and in the description. Drop a quick like if you enjoyed this video, it helps me out a lot. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do me a big favor and subscribe.